Lacey Fletcher was a prisoner of the couch. She had been left there, hungry, covered in feces, naked, unable to eat unless one of them decided to bring her food. Her body was dying while she was still alive. She had been trapped on this couch for the past 12 years of her life. By the time that she was found, she had melted through the couch into a hole. There are theories that range from locked-in syndrome, where someone is fully conscious but unable to move their bodies, trapped inside their own minds. There are theories of full-blown torture, with Lacey being a victim for someone's sick, sadistic pleasure for over a decade. All we know is Lacey Fletcher would die in one of the worst, slow, torturous deaths imaginable, and nobody helped her. Why would someone sit there on the couch for 12 years? She's able-bodied. Why didn't she get up? Clay and Sheila, they're the go-tos for the community. Anyone's got a problem, you go to Clay or you go to Sheila. But who asks how Sheila and Clay are? Robert Blades Sr. asked. He lives across the street from them, and he remembered the couple having a young daughter. And he hadn't seen her in like over a decade for sure. Last he saw of her, she was exercising down the street, running around with some dumbbells in her arms. I mean, she did that a lot. And then she stopped one day. He just kind of assumed, like all the other kids in the neighborhood though, she got into college, moved into the city, met a boy, got married, started a new life, and then never found the time to visit small old town Slaughter ever again. Or maybe she did, and he always missed her. So one day, this daughter would have been about 30 years old at this point. Robert was on his front lawn talking to Clay about, things going on in the neighborhood, and he thought to ask, oh yeah, Clay, how's Lacey? How's she doing? What's she up to now? Moved away? Oh, no, she's still here. She still lives here, she's fine. Clay quickly changed the subject. At that moment, it was very likely that Lacey was unable to walk, fused to the couch, trapped. And death has a smell. I'm not sure how much Dr. Brickham knew when he drove up to the little White House on January 3rd, 2022, but once he parked that car, he gets out, he walks past the well-manicured green lawn, he opens up the front door, and it's like he's hit with this invisible force field. It's a smell. He couldn't breathe, he said. He said there was a stench, an odor, feces, fecal matter, urine. You couldn't hold your breath. Dr. Bickham walks into the living room. Most of the living room is pretty tidy, except the couch in the center of the living room. The dark brown leather couch was the source of this smell, and Dr. Bickham had been hit with it when he walked into that house, and he could almost see steam like emanating from it. The couch looked like it was melting. The couch was soaked with urine and feces, human excrement. And this is the living room of a couple that's pretty well respected in the community. But as Dr. Bickham got closer, he found who he had come here for. Lacey Fletcher was laying in the living room couch. She's not laying on the couch, she's laying in the couch. There is a huge person-sized hole in the leather couch, almost to the floor. She's slumped to one side, sitting cross-legged. Her eyes are wide open, her mouth is wide open. She's completely nude except a small blue pattern top that's pulled over her chest, so her chest is bare. Dr. Bickham could see her bones, not because she was that emaciated, which she was very malnourished, but parts of her body had been rotten and eaten by maggots. She had been alive for 12 years, not able to get up to even use the restroom, and the two people who lived with her, her parents, the ones who walked past that couch every single day, walked past it to head into the kitchen, to the garage, to the backyard, Sheila and Clay Fletcher, they were now standing in the kitchen with no explanation on what the hell had happened. Lacey was pronounced dead at 3:07 p.m. on January 3rd, 2022, but it's likely that she passed away at least 24 to 48 hours prior. Now, Sheila tells authorities January 18th that Lacey had social anxiety and had met with a psychologist over a period of 3 years when she was back a teenager. Lacey was 36 when she passed, so you're talking about like decades ago. Eventually, she stopped seeing her doctor decades ago. Sheila and Clay contemplated getting Lacey committed into a specialist medical facility, but for whatever reason, that never happened. In the interview with the police, Sheila insisted that Lacey refused to leave the couch. It was a personal choice that she made. So she and Clay, they did their best to accommodate her on her wishes. Like they set up a toilet for her, like one of those portable toilets that you see at hospitals. They put it right next to the couch with some baby wipes, baby powder, a fresh change of clothes, a stack of Lacey's favorite movies to watch. They were all there. All Lacey had to do was get up. But she didn't ever want to leave the couch, ever. That's what they said. Maybe it's laziness. So they gave Lacey a towel on the couch to use as a toilet. Sheila also stated that she would have to clean Lacey's body and bed sores, and not once did Lacey ever complain about pain. Sheila stated, January 2nd, 2022, Lacey ate half a sandwich and a bag of Cheetos. This is not what would be found in Lacey's stomach during the autopsy. And if Lacey had been sitting there on that couch for 12 years, that means this hell would have begun around 2010, and she would have almost certainly been in pain since day one. We don't know for sure, but we can only hope that she didn't feel what was slowly happening to her body for 12 long, agonizing, painful years. Dr. Bickham's official report stated Lacey died of sepsis as a result of severe medical neglect, which led to chronic malnutrition, acute starvation. Lacey only weighed 96 pounds at 36 years old. Immobility, acute ulcer formation, bone infection, which ultimately led to sepsis and death. Sheila Fletcher stated she never took Lacey to the doctor because Lacey had never been sick. But that alone seems to be another lie, or at least a very misguided statement, because Lacey had COVID when she died. Most of Clay and Sheila Fletcher's friends did not even know that they had a daughter. But there were people that remembered Lacey, the ones who went to school with her in Slaughter, Louisiana, or the ones that saw her running around the neighborhood when she was younger. They all just assumed that she had grown up, moved out of Slaughter, maybe settled down nearby in Baton Rouge, got married. The ones that knew that the Fletchers had a daughter, they remembered Lacey as being a very friendly kid. She was fun to be around. She had a lot of different interests. She was, like a lot of people, obsessed with Disney. She loved anything Disney World, Disneyland, Disney movies, characters. That's her happy place. She would send friends links to videos of Disney. She's very active. She loved bowling, volleyball. Those were her favorite activities. And everybody's favorite word to describe Lacey was just sweet, like as sweet as can be. She never acted out. She didn't seem like she was creating trouble or, when you have younger kids, there can be certain things that they do or say, or maybe they're acting out that might indicate that something darker is happening within. Maybe it's happening at the house. There's just these little indications, right? Lacey didn't have any of that. She was a happy-go-lucky kid that liked to have fun. Now, side note, Lacey was diagnosed as autistic when she was younger. Lacey's parents would often tell people, yeah, Lacey's just super quiet and withdrawn and she doesn't like socializing. But her friends at school were so confused. They're like, are we talking about the same girl right now? Are we talking about the same Lacey? To a lot of Lacey's childhood friends, it felt like her parents didn't even know who she was. Dr. Bickham, the one that went to Lacey Fletcher's home to find her, was her primary care physician when she was younger. He was friendly with the Fletchers, like he knew the Fletchers. He was their doctor. He's also the town coroner. Dr. Bickham would even describe her diagnosis as, quote, severe autism and social anxiety. But again, this just doesn't really match the way that Lacey's friends describe her, so it's confusing. So one of Lacey's old classmates would say, yeah, I saw her around 15 years ago, and she was definitely different from other kids her age. I mean, I knew that she wasn't your typical teenager. This is all a direct quote. She was smart. She was smart as hell. But I guess the best way to describe her was she wasn't as mature as us. She still liked childish things, like not teenage things. When she was 17 or 18, she was more into Disney movies and country music. She would invite us over to watch Disney movies despite being more withdrawn. But it's just not my forte. Again, she just had her own interests. I would hardly call that strange or a reflection of her diagnosis. So a lot of Lacey's friends, they're shocked when at 16 years old, Lacey gets pulled out of public school at the end of 9th grade and she started to get homeschooled. Her parents stated that she had to be pulled out of school immediately, but it's so unclear, like why? Allegedly, once Lacey started getting homeschooled, she was seen outside less and less. In fact, it just seemed like the couple stopped bringing Lacey up in conversations even. The last time someone distinctly, or at least reports remembering Lacey being brought up in conversations was in 2010. Lacey would have been 23 at the time. The Fletchers walked into Dr. Bickham's office without Lacey and stated, our daughter Lacey is becoming reclusive. She never wants to leave the house or the couch. Based on the Fletcher's description, it sounded like Lacey was dealing with extreme and sudden agoraphobia, which is a disorder when people are afraid of open spaces like public areas. Which we have no idea if this is even what's happening to Lacey. All we have are her parents at her doctor's office saying she doesn't want to get off the couch and she's being antisocial. For all we know, she could have been tied to the couch. So just to recap, Lacey is pulled out of school at 16. She was last seen by Robert Blades Sr. exercising outside when she was was 21. The Fletchers tell Dr. Bickham that she stopped wanting to leave the house at age 23. Lacey was emailing a friend of hers at 27. And Robert Blades Sr. asked Clay about Lacey, and he said that she was fine and at home, and then changed the subject when Lacey was 30. 6 years later, Lacey Fletchers was found dead on the couch at 36 years old. The first theory that came about online was that Lacey had locked-in syndrome. Because when this case broke, a rumor started that she had locked-in syndrome, and everyone, including major news outlets, they just ran with it. But it's not true. Lacey did not have locked-in syndrome. She was able at some point to email her friends, or at least dictate what she wanted emailed to her friends. So even if you have locked-in syndrome and someone is force-feeding you something, you cannot swallow. You have no control over any of your muscles except maybe your eyelids. Then why didn't she just get up? There are a few theories on why, but the belief is, regardless of how it started, her leg muscles probably atrophied to the point where she could no longer be able to get up even if she wanted to. So she started off able-bodied, but her leg muscles might have been completely dead. Let's say, for whatever reason, you are unable to get up from a sitting position, whether that be from inner, mental, or outside physical force, you cannot get up. Your physical body is going to react to that. Have you ever slept and your leg fell asleep? Where you've been in one position for so long that your leg goes numb, and then when you finally take the pressure off that leg, you feel that tingling pins and needle feeling, and it's just uncomfortable. And if we realize it's happening, most of us can do something about it if we're able-bodied. But if Lacey had been sitting in that same position for long enough, her leg muscles would have atrophied on their own and started wasting away, becoming locked into place, paralyzing her. Over time, the pain and rotting of the flesh in her thighs and buttocks would have further paralyzed her muscles as well. Lacey was found in her legs crossed in a position that most people would actually deem and describe as defensive rather than comfortable. Like, how long can you actually sit crisscross applesauce without getting uncomfortable? But let's just say she sat down like that. Soon, within minutes or hours, blood would flow more slowly to this area, which can lead to the bed sores. But it gets worse because this loss of is basically a crushing injury. Not as a description, but that's what they call it, like as if you're getting crushed. It just gets more and more dangerous over time as well. The tissue around her legs and butt were dying. If it gets really severe, surgery or even amputation would be necessary to correct the problem. At a certain point, since Lacey had been sitting for that long, even just getting up could kill her. It's not like her parents are saying she just didn't want to get up from the couch. She could die by getting up from the couch. Lacey had been on that couch for 12 years. By year 1, it would have been shocking if Lacey was even able to use her legs at all. She would have been fully paralyzed. This is likely what could have happened to Lacey's physical body. But again, why? Why did she sit down and never get up? Even when she felt her legs falling asleep, even if she must have felt extreme discomfort in that position, why didn't she just move or reposition herself or get up entirely? Okay, fine. Let's say that she didn't want to get up from this couch. This couch is her safe space. There was some sort of mental barrier. Why didn't she change her positions around? There are two theories that people have considered online. Either there was a mental or emotional reason Lacey did not get up, or she was physically tied down in the beginning until her legs atrophied. Let's explore the first theory, that she chose to be on the couch. But some people theorize that Lacey had developed agoraphobia at 16 and it escalated, developing worse and worse every single year until it reached a point where Lacey's only safe space was the couch that she was on. She didn't want to get off the couch. And the theory goes that the Fletcher parents, they didn't know how to handle this. They thought Lacey was being this lazy teenager who didn't want to socialize, work, or go to school, and it started off as a stubbornness problem. Well, if you don't want to get off the couch, we're not going to take care of you. But eventually that evolved into the Fletcher parents building resentment and denial towards Lacey and the condition. This is, again, a theory. This theory is the kindest towards the Fletcher parents. It's the theory that her parents became so overwhelmed by her, quote, issues that they just kept ignoring the, quote, problem for 12 years until Lacey died. Some people argue that caregiver resentment is very real and that maybe her parents were in denial about how bad it was getting until it was too late. Another supporting theory is that Lacey was kept alive for 12 years. A person can usually only live about a few days without water and a few weeks without food. And although Lacey was severely malnourished, she was getting enough food and fiber to at least defecate. So Lacey was getting enough food to defecate and pass urine. She also had all of her front teeth when she died. So someone, whether it was Lacey or her parents, someone was helping her brush her teeth for her. Could the parents have been so far in denial that they just didn't understand that Lacey could no longer move and get up on her own? or even use the toilet right next to the couch. Maybe they thought, even in year 10, that her legs had not atrophied, even though they were completely rotten and eaten by maggots. They just thought that she was being stubborn and a lazy kid. Or they thought that they were being good, authoritative parents. They're like, you're stubborn, well, we're not going to do what you want us to do. After all, some people argue that the parents clearly brought her a toilet to use and put it up right next to the couch, provided her with baby wipes and baby powder for her, as well as an option to have clean clothes that were sitting right next to her and her favorite movies laid out on the side. Someone's brushing her teeth, which caregivers have stated brushing a patient's teeth is actually a very strenuous, stressful process. Why would they do that unless to a degree they cared about her? You know, people online have stated when parents love their kids and will do anything for them, but their circumstances are just really bad, they don't have the funds to get their child the proper care. The state won't help. There's no other option. They feel lost and heartbroken that they can't do more for their child. That is clearly not the case with the Fletchers. The Fletchers would have enough to pay bail for the both of them. That amounts to $72,000 in cash. They could have easily found Lacey a long-term facility to help her because they can't be the ones to help her. So it's not that they had a lack of funds. Not only that, they live in Slaughter, Louisiana. The community there is incredibly strong. Everyone wants to help their neighbors, and they're popular members of the community. You're telling me that the community wouldn't have rallied together to help Lacey? But the point is, the Fletchers didn't even try. Another netizen points out, they didn't even have her in a private room ignoring her. Like, they walked by her every single day and watched what happened. That's disgusting. That's not denial. And another big thing to note, the parents weren't so in over their heads that they didn't have time or energy to be a part of the community. They were very much active in social life. So they seemed involved in other interpersonal relationships. So they had the energy for that. So now we head into the third theory. The Fletchers were torturing their only daughter, Lacey. This is the theory that most people, including law enforcement, seem to believe. A lot of it has to do with the fact that Sheila even outright lied to the police, stating that Lacey's last meal was the sandwich and the Cheetos, and we know that's not true. The first version is that people believe that something traumatic happened to Lacey and then it spiraled into this. So this is very conspiracy vibes. The first theory is that she was somehow injured. She had some sort of brain injury and all she could do was sit there. Or a traumatic event caused something in her brain to shift. Like SA could be an example of a traumatic event. Some netizens believe this theory a bit more because Clay and Sheila went to see Dr. Bickham in 2010. They stated that Lacey was acting differently, and some people who have been will try and make themselves seem repulsive to their attacker, like they refuse to wash, or they will have kind of a drastic shift in their personality because of the trauma. The theory continues that after a traumatic event, whether it be SA or some sort of physical injury, Lacey was no longer the same. And maybe the theory is her parents caused that shift in some way, shape, or form. And they can't get her help because she might tell someone. They can't get her admitted because she might tell someone. So they just sit her down on the couch. And from there, her legs start atrophying and it escalates into this situation where they still do not want to get her help. There's also a theory that she was tied to the couch in that position until her legs naturally atrophied. And that is, again, purely a theory. There is zero evidence that she was tied to the couch on or before the day she died. But she was on the couch for the past 12 years. And like we said, within the first year, her legs were probably paralyzed and stuck in that position. So we don't know if maybe the first year she was on that couch, she could have been tied up. Who's to say? So the conspiracy is something bad happened. Parents don't want it to get out. Lacey is forced onto couch till her legs atrophy. Parents kept Lacey alive to torture her. Some people think that even the toilet seat and the cleaning supplies being so close to the couch was a form of psychological torture. Like, look at everything you could use if you just get up, but you can't. Because why was it there? What do you mean get up to use the restroom? And a lot of people argue the teeth thing, that's not the parents being in denial. That feels like torture. That feels like you're keeping her alive to prolong some sort of torture. Like, this is no way for a parent to see their child live. But if that's the case, why would Sheila call 911 when Lacey died? Most people didn't even know the Fletchers had a daughter, and the ones who did, they thought that she moved away and started her own life. Nobody was suspicious of the Fletchers in any way. Why wouldn't they just dispose of her body, even bury her in the backyard? Who would know? Now, other commentators say, I believe one Fletcher will turn on the other in hopes of not dying in prison. But I guess none of the theories really answer every question neatly. And again, they're just theories, just lingering questions. charges. The Fletchers were finally arrested, and Dr. Bickham, the coroner, had fought to get a team of medics on standby outside the courtroom while pictures of Lacey were being viewed by the jury. Wow. The DA stated that the photos left the courtroom speechless. So this was not the actual trial. The jury were there to decide whether or not the parents would be charged with manslaughter, negligent homicide, or second-degree murder. The sentencing for manslaughter is typically anywhere between 0 to 40 years. And then the third charge that was being considered for this case, the harshest of the three, was second-degree murder. Now, the DA was fighting for second-degree murder charges, which a lot of people wanted to see first-degree murder, but I guess legally second-degree murder made the most sense, and it could lead to a life sentence. The DA argued with the jury, we don't treat animals or neglect even our pets in that way. If we have an animal in that condition, you take them to the vet. If you're not capable of providing the care for that pet, you get help. You can't say Lacey wasn't in pain. On murder, you have to have intent. Did they want to kill Lacey? I want to say yeah. They wanted to kill her. Lacey hadn't seen a doctor in 20 years. The jury said they would be indicted and charged with second-degree murder. So the parents will be tried. They have pled not guilty, and it doesn't seem like there's a trial date set yet, but it does seem to be like it'll be sometime in 2024. Both the Fletchers' bail were set at $300,000 each. They used a bondsman, which means they had to put up around 12% of that bail, so they would have needed $72,000 in cash to cover for the both of them, which they paid, and again, shows that if they really wanted to help Lacey, they could, to a degree, afford to help her. The couple's attorney, Stephen Moore, released a statement on behalf of the parents, and he said they don't want to relive the pain of losing a child through the media. They have been through a lot of heartache over the years. Anyone who has lost a child knows what it's like. Oh. The couple also went to post on Facebook in just one sentence, "Mom and Dad love you so much," about Lacey's death.